Joining us now from Washington is nuclear safety expert James Acton. Good to have you back with us this morning. I want to touch on a couple of the things that Jeff brought up there and just have you clarify some of them for us. The first one being the discrepancy in I guess, sort of the danger zone. So we're hearing from the Japanese authorities there's this 19-mile radius in terms of evacuation. U.S. officials are saying a much wider swath, more than twice the size, 50 miles. Americans within that area should evacuate. Why the different takes here on the situation?
Well, good morning, Erica. And I think you have to remember that there's a big difference between Americans in Japan and Japanese in Japan right now. And that's that the Americans in Japan can go home. They have somewhere else to go. The nuclear crisis is just one part of a much broader crisis in Japan. Japan's been hit by a massive earthquake and a massive tsunami, and over 500,000 people have already been evacuated. And the Japanese authorities have to factor that into their plans. If they extend the evacuation zone and evacuate more people, but they're not able to feed those people or shelter those people, then it's probably better for those people to stay where they are and inside their houses, which is actually better radiation protection than it might first appear.
Okay, so that paints one picture for us. What about these comments, though, that we're hearing, which we've heard from Chairman Yasko here, talking about these dangerously high levels of radiation? Are there things that the U.S. knows the Japanese government does not, or is it simply different communication style?
Well, Erica, this is pretty hard to explain. I mean, we've heard basically conflicting statements from the chairman of the NRC in the United States and from the Japanese authorities about whether there's any water left in this spent fuel pool. I can't explain this discrepancy. I don't have any information. I don't know who's right. What I would say is, again, given the triple disaster in Japan, I'm inclined right now, if the Japanese government has made a mistake, to give them the benefit of the doubt and to believe it was a genuine mistake rather than an attempt to conceal information, though these issues will clearly have to be examined very carefully afterwards.
Whether or not there is water here is key. Talk to us about what that water actually does.
Well, that water actually has two functions. It's a shield against radiation, and it's also a coolant to keep those highly radioactive fuel rods cool. Now, as far as the shield against radiation goes, if you lose that shield, then those fuel rods are going to be irradiating an area around that fuel pool, and that's going to make it much harder for engineers to get in order to repair it. The cooling issue is a little bit more complicated because, the National Academy of Sciences and the Department of Energy disagrees over whether radioactive spent fuel rods can ignite. So the truth here is actually we don't seem to know right now how much of a danger is posed if you lose the cooling function of the water.
Well, real quickly before we let you go, we've seen what they're throwing everything at it this morning. We've seen the helicopters, we've heard about the water cannons on the ground, and also there are these efforts to restore the power line for the coolant system. If that coolant system is restored, is it enough?
We will see. And, we have to very much hope that that power line is restored as quickly as possible. The thing that I will point out, though, is if you have power, but the cooling system is damaged, then there's no guarantee that restoring power is going to bring this terrible crisis to an end.
And of course, one of the hardest parts of all of this are those workers, the 180 workers working in different shifts who are, as Lucy pointed out, are on what some call a suicide mission. James Acton, thanks for being with us again this morning.
Thanks, Erica.